And like, you're saying that, and like when I heard about the news, I was worried not about them. That's up in Virginia. That's, I don't know, 2,000 miles away, right? I was worried about the people around me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, does this matter to them? Does this register on their worldview, or do they think, like Trump is kind of saying, like, oh, it's something that happened, but
so
we need to have.
when you say people around you, what do you mean? I think we need to clarify. Do you mean
I
white
mean,
people, black people, or just people in general?
the people who I'm seeing throughout this day.
Okay.
When
So
I go to
individuals
Walmart,
you are interacting with.
yes. When I go to Walmart, is this on the cashier's mind, right? If I were to talk to the guy at the pharmacy, like, is he going to brush it off? Is the lady at my church going to be like, that's horrible, or is she going to be like, oh, it's just people being stupid? Like,
yeah, is she going to validate your experience with it? Is she
right?
going
And
to
so,
validate the emotions
exactly.
that are valid to you?
And so when I see you talking about this, I'm like, all right, like, this matters to you. Like,
Yeah.
this matters to you, and that's important to me.
Yeah. I mean, that's at the end of the day, the work that we're doing, no matter if you're part of the Black Lives Matter movement, you're part of the Blue Lives Matter movement, all we want is us to get along. All we want is our voices, our feelings to be valid. Is that a bad thing that human beings want their feelings to feel valid and to feel like they're heard and listened to? But I get it. I understand there is a whole group of people that often aren't listened to, who are often invalidated, who are often made to feel like they're the problem. Like, I get that. That's a part of me as well. I think me being able to understand and feel those emotions help me be better able to differentiate what somebody who is racist or oppressive really is going through. Because if I know how my anger act when I feel invalidated, so they must be feeling really invalidated to plow a car through a group of people. Yeah. Like, that's a fragile ego. That's a fragile human being that needs nurturing, that needs care, that needs to be held down and saying, you're okay, you're loved, you're safe. Right. I do that with kids at the trauma center I work with. You're okay, you're loved, you're protected. Get all those emotions out. You don't have to hit or kill someone to get them out. You can just vent, and we're going to keep you safe. Even if it's violent, even if it's aggressive, you're okay.
Right.
But we don't do that. We don't do that when it's when we see the victim. We look at domestic violence. How do we help the perpetuators of domestic violence? How do we help the perpetuators of racism? You know, how do we help the rich who are perpetuating, you know, the socioeconomic disadvantage? We don't do that. We don't help the rich. We instead give them government bailouts to further sustain the problem. Right? So, I mean, come on. Like, I mean, we are educated sometimes, right? Coin that.
Educated sometimes. Educated sometimes. Okay, so what do you mean by holding people down and loving on them?
Because, for instance, I mean, we talked a little bit about trauma-informed care and what that means, right?
Right.
So when I feel like I'm interacting with a child, let's say I'm working with a child who has been severely traumatized, and the way that he takes control and feels safe in his environment is to be unsafe. Run, hit, bite, scream, kick. I view that as that's a need for that kid to feel safe. And so as an adult who is informed by trauma work, I want to constantly tell that kid that you're safe, you're protected, you're okay, while keeping them safe, giving them permission to behave the way they're behaving because they need it right now, because they feel like their world is unsafe. So when I'm holding a kid in a CPI protective hold, I've been trained to physically hold kids in a way that's therapeutically in their favor to keep them safe. So when I am holding these kids, I am not violent with them. I'm not aggressive with them. I'm not telling them to sit down, stop, and shut up. I'm telling them that you're okay, you're safe, and you're loved. And my whole body language is communicating that to them. So guess what that does? That soothes their limbic system. Then they're able to be in sync. It's almost hypnotic to them, right? They're in a very angry state. You ride with their anger and let them know it's okay to be angry. And then guess what? Now they're on the same page as you, and you can really help them feel safe and secure in your environment. So,
but here's my problem with that. Okay, I love what you just said. I really do. Mm-hmm. But what I see too often is that people actually aren't. If we were to take it to the therapeutic world, most therapists actually aren't trained in CPI. So what happens is either they go hard-nosed one way where they go, we just got to love everybody, or they go hard-nosed the other way where they go, this kid just needs a boot up his ass. And if not, I'm going to throw him in jail to wake him up. Because people aren't trained in how do you provide that tough love, right? In a way that is protective of the child and everybody else.
That's non-shaming of the child.
That deals with the issue.
Yeah.
And I think that's, to me, that is one of the biggest problems we have in society, right? And that's why I think so often we swing toward the violent response, because we don't know how to use the tool. We don't know.
And the thing is, right? Somebody once told me, and I forget, it was probably in the class, the things we hate about other people are the things we hate about ourselves. So when we're sitting there trying to fix the things that's in somebody else that we see that's not desirable, oftentimes we have firsthand experience with ourselves in our own relationships with it. So I think the first stop, even for me working with these kids, is that I need to see, how am I getting trapped in their need for power and control, in their trauma cycle, right? So often we don't take that first step of looking at ourselves. We show up to protest and we don't even see, like, what are my emotional things? What am I running from? What shame am I hiding from? That's a whole different kind of conversation. Instead of showing up, burning down cities and stuff, could we sit and have an open conversation about our shame?
Right.
You know, and then hold that space. But some people say there's no time for shame. Why are we going to sit here and feel bad about shame? But guess what? We're oppressing our own emotions. We're marginalizing our own emotions. We're subjugating our own emotions. And we are being racist to our own emotions. So we hate the things that we hate in other people that we see in ourselves. We do it.
I feel like you're starting to talk about Chicago, right? Like,
so my first TED Talk ever was, and my only, let's just be real, was on social emotional justice, about how if we want to be social justice advocates, we first have to start with our own emotions. How to look at us, like we don't like to feel depressed, we don't like to feel sad, we don't like to feel anger, and yes, we just want to be happy all the time. We just want all these feel good emotions. And so in our lives, we put people around us that make us happy. We use drugs that make us happy to oppress the feelings that we don't want to feel. So at the end of the day, for me, how I see things happening is that we need to learn the ability to tolerate our hard to feel emotions, so that we can still stay in relationship to other people, so that we can still hold space for other people. And when they can't hold space for us, we have this sense of understanding because we can see their struggle with their own emotions, but we can't even see the struggles with our emotions ourselves.
Right.
And we're hiding from it. We use DSM diagnosis. We go to therapists and psychiatrists and get all these medications, which are products of oppression for our emotional landscapes and our emotional worlds, which is a whole different level of abstraction. If we really want to get to the problem of racism, let's talk about validating and subjugating our emotional experiences.
All right.
But I'm on my high horse again. I'll sit down and let you go, Dr. J. What's your thoughts?
So what if, so after you've started on that journey, because in my opinion, it is a part of a journey, right? It's not something that happens overnight. What are some of the actual things, right? So like when you go to hold a kid, you have to have love towards this kid, because that's going to come off in how you hold the kid. But you also have to know, these are the holds that I use. This is a one-person hold. This is a two-person hold. This is the hold that, you know, I'm going to have to step into to pull them into me, so that then I can, you know, do whatever, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the larger sort of systemic approaches or techniques that you feel like we need to have?
Yeah. So I'm thinking about it, right? If you really think about it, and I'm all about the brain and neurointegration. When you think about the ability to be creative with your interventions while you're using the manual protocol for holding, the type of hold you use, the person hold, that's left brain, right brain interactions in that moment, right? Okay. You're holding the creativity, and you're also holding that analytical, what do you need to keep the sound straight and present? You need to be able to fluctuate and be fluid. And that involves, you know, higher executive functioning, limbic system, all of those things, right?
Right.
So when I look at it that way, let's look at one societal divide: Republicans and politicians, right? Republicans and Democrats.